Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. She didn't mean to leave it there. I'm sure of that. Lenora always kept her car spotless, like museum-level spotless. No gum wrappers, no empty coffee cups, not even lint on the seat. But that morning, she was running late. She tossed me her keys, asked me to fill up her tank while she finished getting ready for her friend's birthday dinner. I didn't even question it, until I saw it. Folded in half, shoved beside the gear shift, a glossy white bar receipt. It wasn't the price that got me, it was the time. 12:44 a.m. And the signature? A little heart next to her name. I didn't confront her right away. That's not what I do. I bottle. I stew. I replay things in my head on a loop until they turn poisonous. She came home the next morning looking a little too refreshed for someone who crashed at Madison's place because it was too late to drive. I spent that Sunday pretending to vacuum while watching her from the hallway mirror. She danced while folding laundry. She hummed. She texted. Smiled at the screen. Never once looked up at me. By Monday, I couldn't take it. So I did something I regret. I followed her. After she left for work, I called in sick. I parked 2 blocks down from her office, sat in my car with cold coffee and a stomach full of guilt. Around lunch, I saw her step out, but she didn't go alone. He was taller than me, wearing a sweater I couldn't pull off in my dreams. They didn't touch. Not yet. But the way she tilted her head when she laughed, the way she looked alive, it was a version of her I hadn't seen in years. Not around me, at least. That night, I said nothing. But the next evening, after she made her usual "I'm going to book club" announcement, I stopped her at the door. I said, if you want a night with another man, just say it. But you'll only get one. And in return, you'll have to pick between 2 very real consequences. She froze, keys in hand. Then she smiled. Frankie, she said, why are you making this so dramatic? I didn't answer. Because this time, I was done playing the safe, quiet fool. And what she chose next, it wasn't what I expected. That night, the house was too quiet. Not the kind of silence you get when everything's peaceful. This was the silence that hums in your ears, like the whole building is holding its breath, waiting for the crash. She didn't say anything for hours after I gave her the 2 options. She acted like I never spoke. Cooked dinner. Watched TV. Laughed at a show we used to love. I watched her pretend everything was fine while I sat there unraveling from the inside out. By the time we got to bed, I was sure she'd forgotten the conversation. But right as I reached to turn off the lamp, she said it. Okay, I'll take the first one. Just one night. That's all I'm asking for. I didn't even turn my head. My hand hovered over the switch. My mouth went dry. I think I nodded, or maybe I didn't move at all. All I remember is that her voice didn't sound nervous or guilty. It was calm, like she was choosing between movie genres. The next day, she left for work like it was any other morning. Kissed me on the cheek. Told me to walk the dog. I stared at the closed door for 10 minutes after she left. My legs didn't work properly. My body was frozen, but my mind was sprinting in circles, crashing into every memory we'd ever built together. Later that afternoon, I called off work again. I went through our closet, our drawers, the dusty boxes under the bed. I didn't pack. I didn't have the nerve yet, but I started separating things. What was mine? What was hers? What I could leave behind? What I couldn't bear to? Around 6:17 p.m. She texted me, leaving in a bit. Don't wait up. I love you. I stared at the word love like it was a joke. I didn't respond. I didn't know how. That night, I sat on the couch, gripping a mug of tea I never drank. I imagined every second she spent with him. What they talked about. What she wore. How she laughed. I tortured myself in slow motion. But something strange happened around 11:40 p.m. A car pulled up. Not his. Hers. And when she walked through the door, she wasn't glowing. She wasn't flushed or dreamy or satisfied. She looked wrecked. Mascara streaked. Jaw trembling. No shoes. She stepped inside, saw me on the couch, and just whispered, "You win." I didn't even know we were playing a game. I asked nothing. She said nothing more. She just handed me her phone. And on the screen was something I never expected her to show me. The phone in her hand was shaking. Not a little tremble. The kind you see when someone's body is fighting to hold back whatever storm is raging inside. She didn't say anything. Just stood there in the hallway, mascara like ink down her cheeks, and offered me the screen like it was a confession she couldn't speak out loud. I took it slowly, almost afraid it would burn in my palm. The screen was already open, No lock. No password. A video paused at the first frame. A man's face. Not someone I recognized, but there was something off. The lighting was strange. Harsh. Cold. My fingers hovered over the play button. I looked at her once, but she didn't meet my eyes. I pressed play. What I saw wasn't what I expected. I thought it'd be a romantic dinner, maybe a kiss, some intimate moment I wouldn't be able to forget. But it wasn't that. The video was filmed in a hotel hallway, grainy security footage. Lenora walked into frame first. Alone. She looked nervous, kept checking her phone. Then the man appeared. Tall, expensive-looking, confident. He approached her with a smile, went in for a hug, and then suddenly, something shifted. He grabbed her wrist. Hard. She pulled back, clearly startled, but he leaned in, said something. There was no audio, and she froze. He reached into his coat, pulled out a card or a key, and handed it to her. She shook her head. He stepped closer, too close. She turned, fast, and walked out of frame. The video ended there. I stared at the screen, not knowing how to breathe. Lenora finally spoke, her voice a brittle whisper. That was the guy. The one I told you I wanted the night with. I said nothing. I couldn't. My mind was trying to connect dots that no longer made sense. He wasn't who I thought he was, she continued. It was supposed to be controlled. I thought I had power in the choice. But the second I saw him in person, something felt wrong. I tried to leave. He followed me to the elevator. I blinked. Why show me this? She sat down slowly, like her body no longer belonged to her. Because I didn't do it. Not because of guilt, not because of you, but because when I got close to it, I realized how far gone I already was. I needed you to see that. I didn't respond. I couldn't figure out how I felt. Relieved? Betrayed anyway? Angry that she even got that close? Or ashamed that I gave her the permission in the first place? Lenora leaned her head back and whispered, I thought one night would make me feel free. Instead, it made me realize I don't know who I am anymore. And all I could think was, I didn't know who she was anymore either. But what she said next made me question whether I ever truly did. She sat across from me on the edge of the couch, clutching her knees like a child who had just seen something she wasn't supposed to. And maybe she had. Maybe that's what happens when fantasies meet reality. The candlelit illusion of just one night had burned out the moment he grabbed her wrist. But I wasn't sure whether I was supposed to feel pity for her, or fury, or just nothing. Because that's what I felt in that moment. Numbness. Cold, static numbness. Lenora finally looked at me. Really looked. Her voice was even, almost rehearsed. I didn't come back to beg you. I came back because I knew you were serious. I knew you'd leave. I didn't say anything. I was too tired for moral speeches. She leaned forward, resting her elbows on her knees. You want to know why I asked for that night? No, I didn't. But I let her speak anyway, because I needed to hear it, even if I didn't want to. I felt like I was disappearing. Not because of you, she added quickly, but because of me. I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize anything about the woman staring back. Not her job, not her body, not her life. And you were safe. You always were. But you didn't see me fading. Or maybe you did and didn't know what to do. I could feel my jaw tighten, but I said nothing. I thought if I could feel wanted, desired, by someone new, I'd get something back. Something lost. And I didn't want to lie to you. I thought being honest made it less of a betrayal. That part broke me. Do you hear yourself? I said finally, my voice low, shaking. You're telling me that almost sleeping with another man was some kind of therapy. That being honest about it should earn you what? Credit? She blinked like I'd slapped her. I stood up. I had to. Sitting there, listening to her rewrite the narrative, made my skin crawl. I gave you a choice. And you almost picked the one that ended us. That's not empowerment, Lenora. That's self-destruction wrapped in a silk robe. She didn't fight back. That was the worst part. She just nodded. I didn't go through with it, she whispered. But it doesn't matter anymore, does it? I walked to the window, stared out at the streetlight. I didn't know if it mattered. I didn't know if anything did. I loved her. That was the problem. And it was also the reason everything hurt more than it should have. Then she said something that froze me in place. I met him online, on an anonymous forum. He wasn't just a guy. He knew about you. He told me you were the type who'd never leave. That I could get away with anything. I turned slowly, heart hammering. Wait, I said. He knew about me? She nodded, eyes wide. That's why I left the video on purpose. I think he's done this before. What started as a broken marriage story had just turned into something far more twisted than I was prepared for. And I had no idea how deep it would go. I couldn't sleep that night. Not because of what she'd done, or almost done, but because of him. The stranger. The man behind the screen who somehow knew my name, my habits, the way I moved through my own marriage like a ghost. She said he told her I wouldn't leave, that I was too passive. That I was the kind of man who'd forgive anything if it was presented with enough tears. That wasn't just a guess. That was precision. And the worst part? He was right. For years, I let myself shrink to keep the peace. When Lenora forgot anniversaries, I laughed it off. When she flirted with guys at dinner parties, I convinced myself it was harmless. When she withdrew into her phone every night, I told myself I was lucky she was still here. That was my crime, silence. 1,000 tiny moments I let slip through, just to avoid confrontation. And now, someone I'd never met used that against me like a weapon. The next morning, I waited until Lenora left for work. I didn't ask where she was going. I wasn't ready to see her walk out the door and pretend like the previous night hadn't happened. Instead, I opened her laptop. The password hadn't changed in 3 years. Her desktop was spotless, her browser history cleaner than expected, until I remembered the one place no one ever checks anymore. The Notes app. And there it was. A single locked note titled Room 407. The password didn't take long to guess. Our anniversary date, backwards. Inside was a string of messages. No names. Just lines of chat dialogue. Him and her. Some were flirty, sure, but others were off. He asked questions like, does he always sit with his back to the door? And does he still read those crime novels on the couch every Sunday? At first I thought maybe she told him that stuff. But then I kept reading. You looked tense last Tuesday. Did he bring up the trip again? That's when I felt my chest tighten. We had talked about the trip last Tuesday. A conversation that took place in our backyard. Alone. No texts. No emails. Just me and her, sitting in lawn chairs. I started sweating. Either she relayed every detail to this man instantly, or he'd been watching us. I slammed the laptop shut. My mind spiraled. This wasn't just emotional infidelity anymore. This was something else. Something calculated. And as much as I wanted to scream at her, accuse her of pulling me into this twisted circus, a part of me wondered if she was just a pawn like me. Used. Targeted. She came home late that night. Said she was at work. I didn't mention what I found. I just nodded. Let her walk past. But while she showered, I grabbed her phone. Same passcode. Same Notes app. The chat was synced. But this time, there was a message I hadn't seen before. Sent just 3 hours ago. He's getting curious. Time to decide. Your husband or your secret. No signature. No contact saved. Just that single chilling sentence. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't just about my marriage anymore. It was about control. And someone out there had been watching me unravel with a front row seat. I sat in the dark, the phone still in my hand. The message burned into my brain. He's getting curious. Time to decide. Your husband or your secret. The sickest part wasn't the message, it was how calm it was. Like whoever wrote it wasn't worried. Like this wasn't their first time ruining someone's life. And maybe it wasn't. That thought alone made my skin crawl. I waited until Lenora fell asleep. She always slept facing the window, curled into herself like a question mark. I used to think that was endearing. Now, it just looked like guilt with a blanket over it. I got up, slowly, quietly, heart pounding like a drumline in my ears. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for, but I had to find something. Anything. A clue. A wire. A sign that I wasn't just spiraling into paranoia. I started in the living room. Checked the air vents, the smoke detector, the bookshelf. Nothing. Then the hallway. I took a flashlight to the hallway light fixture. Clean. Then I opened the coat closet. And that's where I found it. A tiny, matte black device tucked behind the molding. So small I would have missed it if I hadn't bent down to retie my shoe. A pinhole lens. Blinking red. I froze. My lungs stopped working. The camera was angled perfectly toward the hallway, toward the space where Lenora and I always argued. Where we'd had that conversation about the trip last Tuesday. It wasn't a security camera. It was something worse. Something placed. I didn't touch it. I just stared at it for what felt like an hour. Then I quietly closed the closet door and went back to bed. I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, counting each breath. She stirred once and touched my arm in her sleep. I flinched so hard she mumbled something and rolled away. The next morning, I confronted her. Not with rage, not even anger, just cold facts. There's a camera in the hallway closet, I said, pouring coffee like it was any other day. Her face went pale. Not the shocked kind of pale. The caught kind. I didn't put it there, she said almost immediately. Too quickly. Then who did? I asked. She didn't answer. Just stared into her mug. I pushed. Who was he, Lenora? Who was he really? Because I don't believe for a second this was just some guy you met online. That's when she cracked. Her voice barely held together. His name isn't real. The number was encrypted. We talked on an invite-only app. He said he specialized in helping women escape boring lives. I laughed. I couldn't help it. So you hired someone to destroy our marriage? She shook her head. No. He found me. I don't even know how. He messaged me after I posted a comment in a private group for women in stale marriages. I thought it was just venting. I didn't think. I cut her off. You didn't think. That part one believe. She looked down. He knew everything, Frankie. Stuff I never told anyone. Stuff about you. Your father. That old cabin story from your childhood. I never even heard you say it aloud. My blood ran cold. That story. I only ever told it once. To my therapist. Years ago. So either this stranger was a ghost, or someone had been watching us much longer than we realized. And then the scariest question of all hit me. What if this wasn't about Lenora at all? What if I was the target all along? I didn't go to work the next day. I didn't tell Lenora I was staying home either. She left like everything was normal, like we weren't living in a house rigged with silent eyes and secrets that tracked back years. I waited 5 minutes after her car pulled out before I went straight to her office upstairs. It wasn't locked. She never needed to lock it. And that day, I was grateful for her carelessness. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I had a strange gut feeling that whatever had been done to us hadn't ended. It was still happening. I started with her computer again, this time digging deeper. Not just browser history or emails. Those were clean. Too clean. I searched for hidden files, document archives, anything encrypted. And then I saw it. A folder buried inside another, labeled client_materials_2018. One file stood out. No extension, no description, just my name. Frankie. TXT. My stomach dropped. I opened it. The file was pages long. Paragraph after paragraph describing me in disturbing detail. Not just obvious things like where I worked or my birthday, but weirdly specific things. Frankie has a habit of blinking rapidly when lying. He checks the oven 3 times before leaving the house, likely OCD-related. Avoids speaking about his father unless attempting to trigger emotional withdrawal. I sat back, cold sweat forming. It read like a psychological profile written by someone who had studied me for years. No one should have known this stuff. No one but me. And maybe my old therapist. That's when a thought hit me so fast it nearly knocked the breath out of me. I opened another browser and logged into an old email I hadn't used in years, the one I gave when I signed up for online therapy after my dad passed. I searched for the name of the therapist. The website? Gone. Domain expired. The practice? Dissolved. And the therapist himself? No digital footprint. Like he never existed. I suddenly remembered a single session that stuck with me. He had asked strange questions. Not about trauma or grief, but about my routines. How often I cooked. If I ever caught my wife lying. If I thought she was the dominant one in the marriage. I hadn't thought much of it at the time. But now it looked like a setup. What if I'd been the experiment all along? Lenora wasn't the first person contacted. I was. I just didn't know it. They had access to my therapy sessions, my private habits, even my psychological vulnerabilities. And what better way to test their reach than to manipulate my wife into asking for one night with someone else? What better way to destroy me from the inside out? But here's the thing that truly broke me. The last line in that file. He will endure anything to avoid abandonment. When she makes her request, he will offer 2 options. Both are traps. He just won't know it yet. They knew. They knew what I'd say, what I'd offer. I didn't come up with that ultimatum on my own. It was planted. And suddenly, the question I never thought I'd ask was screaming in my mind. What if even my reaction wasn't really mine? For 2 days, I didn't speak to Lenora. Not out of spite. Not even out of anger. I just needed silence to figure out where I ended and where their manipulation began. I walked through my own house like a stranger. I didn't trust the corners, the reflections, or even my own thoughts. But the strangest thing happened in that stillness. I stopped feeling like a victim. I started feeling awake. I made copies of everything. The file, the messages, the video footage. I bought a prepaid phone, printed screenshots, and mailed it all anonymously to a friend who worked in digital forensics. No return address. Just a note. Don't ask. Just hold on to it. I didn't need justice. Not right away. I needed freedom. Lenora tried to talk to me that evening. She stood in the doorway of the living room, her face pale, eyes raw from lack of sleep. I don't know who I am anymore, she whispered. And for the first time in years, I responded clearly. I do. You're someone who followed a fantasy because real life scared you. But you're also someone who came back. That counts for something. She nodded, tearfully. Do you still want to leave? I stood up. The suitcase I'd packed the night before sat by the door. But I didn't touch it. I'm not leaving tonight, I said. But I am leaving what this marriage used to be. We didn't hug. There were no sweeping romantic declarations. But we both knew something had shifted. Not healed, but shifted. I started therapy again. This time with someone local, someone I could meet in person. And I chose them myself. As for Lenora, she cut off every trace of that man, deleted the apps, changed every password, and she gave me the space I needed, even when it scared her. Sometimes she still cried at night, but for the first time, she cried where I could see her. And that meant something. It's been 6 months since all of that. We still live in the same house. We eat dinner together 3 times a week. We sleep in separate rooms, but not out of anger, just space. There's honesty now. Sometimes it's raw, but it's real. And me? I'm rebuilding. Slowly. On my terms. Because when someone tries to write your story for you, the most powerful thing you can do is pick up the pen. That's the end of my story, at least for now. Have you ever found something in your relationship that made you question everything? Maybe a small detail, a strange message, or even just a feeling in your gut. Share it in the comments below. And if this story shook you even a little, don't forget to like and subscribe for more shocking confessions right here on Reddit Confessions.